Okay, today we're starting on page 7 of our notes. This is taking just the same thing we've been doing the last couple days and putting them into formal proofs. So our steps we follow, we're going to fill this out in case you need a reference. First, go ahead and label anything on your picture that you have given information of. The first statement in your proof should be your first given, and the reason should be given. Next, if our statement has something to deduce, we have to make that conclusion. Deduce means make a conclusion. And so we do that until a congruency is reached. This would be if we have words like bisect or midpoint. Continue with your next given until we've used up our givens. If you do not have 3 congruencies after we've had our given, that's when we look for that reflexive side, reflexive angle, pair of vertical angles to get a congruency. Once you have all 3 of them, you determine which of our 5 reasons it is, so that'd be our side, angle, angle, side, angle, side, or hypotenuse leg. And your last statement would be the prove statement. And we're doing all 5 congruencies. We aren't doing only the first 3, so you would also be doing angle, side, and hypotenuse leg. So if you need a reference, come back, see if you can follow through, see what step you're on. For most of you, this is going to be pretty easy because this is what we've been doing the last few days. So our first thing we do is label our picture. So AD is congruent to AB. And then DC is congruent to BC. Those are my 2 givens. So the first thing I do is list them. AD is congruent to AB. That is already a congruent statement, so I do not have to deduce anything. My reason is given. And DC is congruent to BC. Again, the reason is given. And so I've used up my givens. I have nothing to deduce. Those are already my congruent statements. So I look and I find that I have a reflexive side. AC is AC. And so our reason for that is just reflexive. And unlike in what we did last class, I don't have to decide the order of my letters. It's already listed out for me in my proof statement. So ADC is congruent to triangle ABC by my side. Alright, once you have that, flip on over to your next page. So on example 2, we have a word bisects first. So our first step is always to label our picture. We have angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. That was a given. And we know that angle DAB, or DAB angle, is cut exactly in half. Bisects means equal halves. And so since I know I have 2 equal halves, I can go ahead and mark that this side is congruent to this side. And so my statements, first I list out my givens. So line AC bisects angle DAB, and that was given. Next, because that's not already a congruency statement, I'm going to go ahead and label these 2 angles. So that means angle DAC, which is this side here, is congruent to angle BAC. And that is my definition of bisects. So anytime I have a word like bisects, I'm going to define it by writing my congruent parts. My next given is really easy. Angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. That is given. And so here I have an angle. I have to look for a side or something else, and I find that reflexive side in the middle. And so I'll list out AC is congruent to AC, and that is reflexive. So now I have an angle, I have a side in the middle, I have an angle, and so I can prove ABC is congruent to triangle ADC by side angle side. And then I check over my work and I realize, wait, I wrote angle side angle here and side angle side here. That's wrong, so I have to correct that. It should be my angle side angle. So our last step is always go back and check, did I actually write out what I proved on the drawing here? So my next one, I again have some midpoint, some words in here. So my first step is I'm still going to mark C as the midpoint of BD, which means that this half has to equal this half. That's my definition of midpoint. And then C is also the midpoint of AE. So I find my line AE and mark those two halves equal. And those will be my first four statements, my givens, and then marking the halves equal. So C is midpoint of BD. And then C is midpoint of AE. And then I'm going to go ahead and label my halves. So BC is congruent to DC, and that would be my definition of midpoint, and AE is congruent to, AC is congruent to EC, and that is also my definition of midpoint. And then I need my third thing. I've used up my givens, and so I'm checking for vertical and reflexive. Can you find what it is on your paper? And if you found the vertical angles in the middle here, you are correct. And so that is my third reason, is my angle BCA is congruent to angle DCE by vertical angles. Therefore, I now have side. I have angle in the middle, and I have side for each triangle, and so my reason is going to be side, angle, side. And I copy out my proof statement. Triangle ABC is congruent to triangle EDC. Okay, go ahead and flip over to page 9. So on 9, it starts out with a nice congruent statement. HY is congruent to LY. That's our given. And then it tells me WH is parallel to LF. So when I'm looking for parallel lines, I don't know anything about their length, but I do know that I can look for some alternate interior angles, because if these are my parallel lines, that would make HL would be my transversal. So when we're dealing with congruent triangles, if I have parallel lines, I'm going to look for my alternate interior angles. Alright, so I see these are my parallel lines, this is my transversal, and so this angle would be congruent to this angle. That would be my alternate interior angles that I can look for. And then look, can you find any other pair of angles, either by alternate interior or vertical, that you could match up? And if you again found those vertical angles in the middle, you are correct. So now that we've marked everything in our drawing, let's list out our reasons. So HY is congruent to LY, and that reason is given. Then my WH is parallel to LF, and again, that reason is given. Now I list out my, because of the parallel lines, I have my alternate interior angles. And there I can use just one letter here because H is only this angle. There's no other angle it could be. So that tells me angle H is congruent to angle L. And then my vertical angles. So vertical, if I just say angle Y, I have no idea which part that means. So for angle Y, I do have to use all three letters. So HYW is congruent to angle LYF. And so now we have my triangle Y is congruent to triangle phi by angle, side, angle, and this one has the same angle, side, angle. Alright, example 5 is a nice simple one. It already has marked for us that AV equals DC. By now, hopefully you easily recognize that reflexive line in the middle. And then we have this angle given for us. Now this is a right angle. So right angle means we could still have our side angle side, or we could be looking for hypotenuse leg. And so here I have side, and I have angle. That cannot be side angle side because they're not both touching my angle. So I can cross that off. I know that's not an option. But I do have my long side, which is a hypotenuse, and I do have a leg. So my final answer will be hypotenuse leg. And by now, we've had enough practice of this. You're going to go ahead and see if you can fill this out. And after the notes, I'll show you where to check and see if you filled it out correctly. So once you've filled that out, you may need to pause the video. We're going to, same thing, this is part of your classwork for today to do examples 6 and 7. And so I'm going to point out a few things, and you'll finish these either by yourself or with your group, and then I'll show you where to check your answers. So remember, when you have the word bisect, you need to mark which parts get bisected. So AE is bisecting DB. That means C is the very center, and these would be the parts you can mark equal. And then you'll need to look, do you have vertical angles or reflexive line? And example 7 gives us a side already marked for us, an angle already marked for us. You look for your reflexive side or vertical angle and see if you can fill out this proof. So you're going to now go ahead and fill out those remaining examples 5, 6, and 7. And then in the assignments tab on Canvas, you will find the filled in notes and you can check your answers. Then go on to today's IXL assignment.